the most successful serial killer. Yeah, I'm going to go ahead and talk about her. And her name is Giulia, and she did this. And my name is Giulia. I was thinking of making an episode about this for Funny Medicine. So I'm just going to make this as a summary. If you'd like us to do a whole episode on this. In the meantime, I'm going to be planting this beautiful big girl into this, because she deserves to be in a pretty, bigger, nicer, better pot. So it started in the Renaissance, so like 1600s, around there. She was born around that time. She was always around apothecaries. Her mom worked in apothecaries, something like that or another. And mind you, till this day, there isn't exact proof that she even existed, but there's countless journals. There's like maybe a drawing or two or one single portrait of her. And she's become like an Italian lore at this point. But she did teach us a thing or two about mixing things, and she became a pretty big legend. Back to that. She grew up around apothecaries. At that time, apothecaries were pretty much, mind you, this is going to be a mess. I don't know how I'm going to get this big plan in here, but we're going to try. Why? Because hyperindependence, trauma, whatever. That's a whole other thing on its own. Anyway, apothecaries at that time were pretty much like the pharmacies of that. But people were doing like things like oregano oil, things that people still swear by today, but we do have antibiotics now. I am going to destroy these scissors. She grew up around all of that. It says that her mom was the one that actually taught her very first poison. Mother-daughter bonding at its best. But again, not really confirmed about that. In her adulthood, made, as Baby Syrian calls it. If you haven't seen her episode on Giulia Tofana, that's the name of this woman, you should. That's where I learned about her. Baby Syrian's amazing. So she made Aqua Tofana, and she sold it as a beauty or religious type of oil. Now, what was it made of? That's the thing. It's made of arsenic, incredibly poisonous to humans, animals, like belladonna, which has a lot of gnarly side effects. But people back then used to use it as a beauty tool to have that effect. They used to use arsenic and lead to whiten your skin for complexion. What I'm gathering here is that people wanted to look like you look. Because you're pale and then you have dilated pupils. Beauty standards of back then. Oh shit, I think I'm getting her out. Ah! I did it! And it wasn't as much of a mess. I thought it was gonna be. Oh, let's move her over to the irrigation of this plant. That's too deep. She needs more. Why did she start doing this poison? She didn't just wake up one day and was like, I feel like murder. No, she didn't do that. Back then, 1600s, Renaissance era, women were pretty much, when they were married, they were property of the men. They didn't have much of a say of anything at all. And some of them were married off to these men, and it was an abusive marriage and all that. And there was no way of divorcing. It was pretty bad. And then these women were left with no way out. Some of them would eventually just from these marriages. So she started selling this poison to help these women out. She was, of course, brilliant, because she put them in these really pretty bottles that resembles like a cosmetic, oil, like some beauty oil or something. So the men or anyone around them wouldn't know. They think it's a perfume or makeup. This Aqua Tofana was odorless, colorless, tasteless. So these women could put it in any liquid, food, whatever, and they wouldn't know the better. It would also work slowly. So it would take several doses of it for it to start taking effects. It wasn't an immediate thing. They would have to put the poison in several days, take it for a consecutive amount of time, and then slowly the person would. So the first day they'd have flu-like symptoms. The next day they would probably be vomiting, diarrhea, all the things. Things that back then in the 1600s would eliminate you. But then also, they wouldn't really note it as oh man, this is a really weird death. Because back then, people were dying from the flu, and they would just say oh yeah, another victim of the flu. Here we go. She was smart. She wouldn't sell this to just anybody that would walk in the store. She would vet them, and it was word of mouth, only by people that she trusted. And then once those people would go to her from a trusted source, then she would vet them and make sure that she could trust them, and so on and so forth, and it would go like that. She would also give them the instruction and demand that whoever that they're using this poison to have a post-mortem examination, so then the doctors could definitively rule it out as natural causes for their death, not a poisoning, hence covering her track in always. Brilliant. She went ahead and did this for about 50 years until she got caught in the 1650s because one of her clients cracked. She started feeling bad once she started seeing her husband that she was poisoning, getting more ill and whatever. And then she told him, like, oh crap, stop eating that. It's poisoned. He's like, well, shit, absolutely not. Straight to jail. So he reported his wife, where they were not very nice. They ended up torturing this woman until she would confess. They tortured her until she confessed and gave up Giulia as the source. Giulia was informed by her friends, people, that this woman ratted and she needs to run. That's exactly what she did. She ran. But she wasn't really sure where the hell she was going to go. So she went to a church and she asked for sanctuary. They granted her that sanctuary, but she got real. And rumors started going around once they heard about these poisonings. And rumors be rumoring. They said, you know what? It's beyond that. She poisoned all of the water and all of Rome. Wasn't the case, but rumors and people in with the rumoring. She was given up by the church at the end of the day because the church is like, yo, the heat's too much. Gotta give you up. So they did. And I guess that was just like the thing they did back then, torture. After all of that horrible torture that I'm sure that she underwent, she confessed to about 600 men that she provided the poison. That many men in the short time period of 1633 to 1651, give or take. Proved it. She only was able to name some of her clients, but dude, if you gave this out to over 600 people, how could you really remember it at the top of your head? And in July of 1659, she had a daughter working with her at her apothecary doing the same thing. So it was like a multi-generational mother-daughter thing. Started with her mother, then she passed it on to her daughter, whatever. But, I guess it ended there because her daughter, her, and 2 or 3 of her employees were executed. There's so many rumors around this woman. Some people think this was just like an urban legend. These things were found in journal entries, but it kind of makes sense because, she had secrets. She had secrets to keep. It makes sense for her to make sure that not many people knew who she was, to have portraits made of her and stuff like that. I think given her line of work, her best interest would be to be as low-key as possible. I don't know. Do I think that she was real? I do. It's not like history really documented shit that women did a lot back then. It was mostly men that got documented, and women were just murdered for literally knowing how to read back then. You know how to read? Bitch. And she seemed like she was an intelligent, capable woman. She came from her mother that was an apothecarian. And she did the same thing. She was passing it on to her daughter. And I don't know, maybe she had some bad experience or lived it or whatever. She was like, you know what? I'm going to help out these women since they can't get out of these shitty marriages. I'm going to find a way for them to get out, and I'm going to help them out like that. But murder is murder. She did kill 600 men. I just wish these women had a better option than having to ending their husbands. You imagine that you're that desperate, that you're like, I need to get out of this marriage so bad that I need to resort to this. In the Renaissance era, they couldn't even have a job. Many of them, if they could read, they were from high class families with money and stuff like that. But what about the women that weren't? They were just, like I said, captives pretty much. They had to hope that the man would just die naturally, or they died. I don't know. There wasn't really a way out. I thought it was pretty fascinating, this woman and her story. I'm not glorifying her. She is a murderer at the end of the day, but she did some stuff, and it was pretty ballsy for a very long time. And it's crazy that she might possibly be the most prolific serial killer, and not many people know about her. Hope you liked it. If you want to hear more, because this was a summary of the actual whole story, this could be a whole episode on its own. Let me know, and I'm more than happy for us to make an actual episode on this, because the medicine behind it, incredible. How it worked, what it did, arsenic, lead, all of that stuff back then. Fascinating stuff. If you want a deeper dive into it, happy to do it. Just let me know. And that's planted back. I should have done this. God, I'm so awkward.